If you want the sound of running water in your backyard, but you don't want the maintenance of a full pond, a pondless stream or waterfall is one of the best ways to do it. But to make one that actually works long term, you need to understand a couple of simple ideas. Water in motion, how to size the reservoir, and what to expect with algae, top-ups and flow rates. G'day, my name is Kev, and my aim is to help people build and maintain ponds and water features without spending a fortune. If that sounds like something that interests you, you might like to subscribe and check out my website, Ozponds.com. Alright, let's talk pondless streams. A pondless stream or waterfall is simply a water feature where you see the water at the top and along the stream, but it disappears at the bottom. There's no open pond sitting there. Instead, all the water drops into a hidden reservoir underground. Inside that reservoir is your pump, and your pump sends the water back to the start of the stream. So it's a simple loop. We have the reservoir and the pump, then the waterfall and the stream, and the water goes back into the reservoir. No fish, very little open water, and if you build it right, it's very low maintenance. So it's perfect for someone that loves the sound of water or wants something that looks natural, but they don't want to worry about fish health or pond maintenance. The key to a good pondless system is the reservoir. We don't just dig a hole and fill it with rocks. If you do that, most of the space is taken up by stone, and there's actually not much water in there at all. Instead, we create a void space underground. We can use matrix blocks like aqua blocks or Atlantic flow tanks, which I'm pretty sure are basically aqua blocks rebranded. We could use milk crates, plastic pallets, even buckets with holes drilled in them on really small systems. We can use anything that can hold the weight of the rock and pebble on top, creates a strong cavity for water to sit in, and lets us disguise the whole thing so it looks natural. We will have to line that pit with pond liner, and then put our blocks or crates inside, connect the pump, run the plumbing, and cover it all with rock and pebble. So from the surface, it just looks like part of the stream bed. I should also mention that you're going to want to place the pump in an area where you can easily access it. From time to time, you'll need to lift it up and give it a bit of a clean. Bits of debris will make their way down into the reservoir. So here's where most people go wrong. They underestimate how much water is out in the stream when the pump is running. All that water has to come from somewhere, and it comes out of the reservoir. If the reservoir is too small, the stream fills up, the reservoir drops, and the pump starts sucking air, and that's when things burn out. So we want to estimate the volume of water in motion. So there's a simple way to do this. If you like to work with meters, you take the length, the width, and the average depth, and you times it by 1,000, and that will give you the number of litres. Or if you prefer to work in feet, you take the length, the width, and the average depth, and then times it by 7.5, and that will give you the gallons. So your reservoir needs to comfortably hold all the water in motion, plus a good buffer so the pump stays fully submerged, and plus any room for splash out or evaporation. As a general rule, the reservoir needs to hold at least 2 times the water in motion. I much prefer about 4 times the water in motion to build in more resilience and margin for error. You can find all these calculations inside the formula's blueprint, and that's available at Ozponds.com. A pondless system will actually cost as much or more than a small pond of the same size, because the biggest expense is the liner, and then you need the matrix blocks. So the reservoir is the same as a pond, but you just don't see it. For a true pondless stream or waterfall with no fish, you generally don't need a filter. In fish ponds, we need filtration because fish produce ammonia, and that ammonia is toxic to them. The filter grows bacteria that convert ammonia into less harmful forms of nitrogen, so the water stays safe. In a pondless system, there's no fish constantly adding waste, the water's always moving, and the rocks and pebbles in the stream and the reservoir grow beneficial bacteria. And that's usually plenty to keep the water healthy for birds, insects, frogs and tadpoles, and anything else that visits and uses the stream. But if you decide you want a little pond section inside the stream, which is exactly what I did with my solar pond and stream, then yes, you treat it a bit more like a pond and consider adding filtration. But for a basic pondless stream or waterfall, no, you don't need a filter. Now let's talk algae. Because the water is shallow, often warm and exposed to sunlight, algae will most likely show up. And that's normal. Algae occurs in natural streams, creeks and lakes. It's part of nature, and it actually provides a food source for some of the little critters that call your feature home. If you want to run it pretty much algae-free, there are treatments. You could use copper-based algicides, hydrogen peroxide, sodium percarbonate, even low doses of chlorine. All of these work to kill the algae, but you always need to be mindful of what else is living in the water and what might be drinking from it. The methods I just mentioned are all pretty safe if used correctly, but my preferred method is always manual removal first. That's just physically pulling it out. That's the most environmentally conscious approach, but I'll be honest, I do sometimes spot treat with hydrogen peroxide or sodium percarbonate, especially in troubled areas. Barley straw extract is another more natural option that some people like to use. I've made a few videos on different algae treatments, so if you want to go deeper on that, you can find them here on YouTube or on the Ozponds website, and I also have links to various treatment options. Every water feature loses water, evaporation, splashing, wind. You've got a few options to top it up, and most people will tell you to set up an automatic top-up with a float valve. Personally, I tend to be anti-auto top-up, and here's why. If you ever get a serious leak, a pipe failure, a liner issue, something like that, an auto top-up will keep feeding water into the system. You might not notice anything is wrong until you get a nasty water bill or you start seeing boggy patches. So I prefer manually topping it up, even just with the garden hose. It forces me to actually look at the feature, see how much water it's losing, and over time you get a feel for what's normal in summer, winter, windy days, really hot days, and so on. Of course, auto top-up is convenient, and if you do go that route, just make sure it's done properly. If using town or mains water, you'll most likely need to use a plumber, and also remember that the auto top-up shouldn't be at the top of the reservoir. If the reservoir is full and then the pump's turned on, all that water in motion leaves the reservoir. If the top-up keeps it full when the pump shuts off, all that water in motion will return to the reservoir, but it's already full and it will overflow. Speaking of overflows, if the reservoir is near the house, it is best practice to include an overflow for rain events. I've made a video and blog posts on how I add a simple overflow to my ponds and streams, so you can check that out if you're interested. The pump you choose controls how wide the water can be, how thick the sheet of water looks, and how much sound you get. Again, I have posts on the Ozponds website that talk about how much water you need for waterfalls and streams, and I also have a dedicated section in the formulas blueprint. But as an absolute minimum, for 30 centimetres or a foot of stream width, you want at least 4,000 or 1,000 gallons per hour of water. If building waterfalls, you certainly want more than that. So that's the bare minimum, but in reality I much prefer to work with about 3 times that flow. That gives you options. You can always turn a pump down, but you can't turn a small pump up past its limit. I'm a big fan of energy efficient variable speed pumps, ideally DC sine wave pumps. Again, I've got links on ozponds.com, but the general idea is you can dial the flow up or down depending on your mood, you can save on running costs, and you can tweak the look and sound of the stream without changing the hardware. Because there are no fish depending on constant filtration, pondless systems are excellent candidates for solar. You can run the pump during the day when the sun's out, hook it up to a battery so you can keep it running in the evening or through cloudy periods. Some of my favourite times to sit next to a pond or stream are in the evening, so having that battery storage is really nice. Again, the beauty of a pondless is, if the pump stops for a while, nothing dies. The water just sits there until the sun comes back. To make it look natural, you want a mix of larger rocks, medium stones and small pebble. Using different sizes and shapes is what makes it look like a real creek rather than a pile of rocks. You'll also create little zones where you'll tuck in marginal plants. There are some fantastic professional pond builders here on YouTube, and watching how they position rocks for different effects is well worth your time. You'll see how they frame waterfalls, where they create narrow pinch points, and where they open it up for quieter water. You'll see them using expanding foam to force water over the front of rocks instead of disappearing behind them. There is a special black waterfall foam made for this, but for years now I've been using just regular expanding foam, and that's worked fine for me, and it's much cheaper. You can disguise the foam so that you don't really see it, but it helps guide the water exactly where you want it. One last design tip, always work with the slope that you actually have. If your yard already has a slope, follow that. It'll look natural and blend into the landscape. If your yard is flat, you can use the spoils from digging the reservoir to build up a low, wide mound. Then run a gentle stream back into the reservoir. But you don't want a completely flat yard with a giant mountain and a big drop waterfall stuck in the middle. It just looks out of place. Keep it low and wide and go for a natural grade, and let the feature disappear into the landscape. So to build a good pondless stream or waterfall, we create a void space reservoir with matrix blocks, crates or similar, lined with pond liner. Calculate your water in motion in metric or imperial, then size your reservoir generously. Remember, you don't usually need a filter for a true pondless system with no fish. Expect some algae, manage it with manual removal and spot treatments if needed. Top up water manually or with an auto top up, but stay aware of any leaks or seasonal changes. Choose a pump that gives you a decent flow to work with, preferably more and ideally a variable speed, energy efficient pump. You can consider solar with a battery if that suits your setup. Use a variety of rock sizes, some expanding foam and the natural slope to make it look like it's always been there, and add some plants. If you want more help with things like water in motion, reservoirs, rock calculations, and building streams and waterfalls, I covered those concepts in my Pond Formulas blueprint, and you also get access to Kev Bot, he's a virtual pond assistant, and the Ozponds community, where you can ask questions from me and other DIYers. I hope this has helped you understand what's involved in building a pondless stream or waterfall. If you found it helpful, give the thumbs up button a little tickle and share it with anyone that's looking to create something like this. Thanks for watching. See ya.